The US President Donald Trump is threatening Nigeria with potential military action, accusing the country's government of enabling the religious persecution of Christians. The Nigerian president has pushed back against the claims, while a spokesperson says it welcomes US assistance in fighting extremist groups like Boko Haram. Ayodele Sogunro is Nigerian human rights lawyer and researcher, and he joins me now from Toronto. Ayo, good to have you with us today. Now, Donald Trump claims that Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Is that the case? And why is the US president so interested in religious violence in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Garish. We can only speculate on what Donald Trump's motivations are at any given time, but it's not for making simplistic, broad statements about complex issues, and in truth could also be masking economic U.S. interests behind this normative Christian framework that rejects, institutions such as the United Nations and other universal rights frameworks to address issues like this. So while there are lots of speculations as to why this is being generated right now, it is still consistent broadly with what has been considered, this binding normative Christian theological framework that we've seen growing in the US in the last few months.
Yes, do you believe that's where the pressure is coming from, given what he said, and given that this may not have any material benefits for Donald Trump's so-called America's First policy?
Well, it is hard to say there will be no benefits at all. Nigeria is a oil-rich country. There has been speculations about the discovery of minerals and mines in the north of Nigeria, and there is also speculation about the intention to counter Chinese influence in Nigerian economical systems. So all of these are potential U.S. interests that, again, are being masked behind this idea of protecting Christians in Nigeria.
Ayo, what can you tell us about the issue of religious violence in Nigeria? Because in our report at the top of our show, we did mention as well that Muslims are also being targeted in violent attacks in the country.
Exactly, because the issue is one that is too nuanced, of course, to articulate fully in this discussion. But clearly, yes, some minority Christians in northern Nigeria are victims of Muslim terrorists in the north. But it should be made clear that they are not being targeted simply because they are Christians, but because they form part of the population of a larger group of communities that are being targeted by Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in the northeast of Nigeria. In the middle belt of Nigeria, however, there is an economic/ethnic conflict that is going on between Muslim cattle herders and Christian farmers. And of course, in that kind of conflict, the predominant Christian settler communities are also being targeted by these Muslim farmers. But again, it should be clear that if, for example, all of these Christians suddenly converted to Islam right away, it would not have saved them either. And so in that sense, it is not exactly a Christian targeted set of violence. It is one that is based on other issues that go way beyond religion.
Yes, so this is also telling us that the Nigerian government is struggling to combat the likes of Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, for instance, in Nigeria. Why are they still a big threat?
Well, the Nigerian government has been particularly inefficient over the last 15 years with dealing with this threat. At various points, they've either neglected to follow up with attacks, or they've even neglected to prosecute people who have been identified as sponsors and perpetrators of these attacks. And in some instances, they've made very controversial decisions to pardon and integrate some terrorists. But again, this has been the situation across successive governments, some of which have had, of course, again, Christian vice presidents, or even at the start of all of this, a Christian president too. So we should be able to separate the issue of religion again from the issue of state inefficiency and how that is being framed as, states kind of state-sponsored genocide.
Yes, and how are Nigerians reacting to Donald Trump's assertion that he may even put American boots on the ground, because this is a matter of Nigerian sovereignty, isn't it?
Yes, it's mixed reactions so far. A lot of people have voiced their own, expression of relief, welcoming this as some kind of either pressure on the government that has otherwise been very neglectful and insensitive to do something about the situation, and even possible relief for communities who are feeling defenseless against these attacks by, like I said, either terrorists or the cattle herders, and who have suffered this violence over a decade. And even right now, when you see the kind of rush of activity by the government trying to suddenly deploy security forces to some of these areas, you can see that it seems that this external pressure is working already. However, from a more critical perspective, a lot of us are also very concerned about the potential implications of a U.S. invasion or external intervention by the U.S. We've seen historical examples from other places where the U.S. has done similar interventions, either to save democracy, but now to save Christianity. And it never ends well for the locals. Afghanistan, Somalia, Syria, Libya, we can keep counting. We do not have a place where the US has gone into and left the place better than they met it. And we do not want the same thing for Nigeria, because the effects will be devastating, not just for Nigeria, but across all of West Africa.
Yes, and the spokesman for the president did also say he would welcome any sort of U.S. assistance. Do you think perhaps the Nigerian government can control the level of American, American action in Nigeria to combat groups like Boko Haram? Can they manage a situation like that and not lead to a situation that you've just spoken about with what's happened in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Oh, yes, unless there are other, again, stronger interests, which we can only speculate on at the moment. I believe Donald Trump is an easy person to, I wouldn't use the word manipulate, but certainly to flatter and to redirect, because all they have to do is to have proper diplomatic engagement. But right now, Nigeria doesn't even have an ambassador to the United States. Again, part of what we mean about government inefficiency in Nigeria. And so if they are able to, just set their house in order, engage with the U.S. government in a way that makes Donald Trump able to walk back his talk without losing face, then clearly they can still do this well. But again, the U.S. has had a kind of shifting policy around aiding Nigeria's military activities over the last decade. At times, there have been withdrawal of arms to the Nigerian government, of arms sales to the Nigerian government because of human rights abuses the military has been accused of. And then at other times, there has been Nigeria just being, having all of these sanctions imposed on, prominent members of the government for various reasons. So it's kind of like an unclear relationship at the moment. I'm sure the government obviously wants a much more amiable relationship, but then it's up to them to do the right things.
Now we'll see whether the words do lead to action. Ayodele Sogunro, really appreciate your analysis today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Garish. Nice to join you.